left Eddie out of the first. Somehow I left Eddie out of the original email. So when he told me yesterday, he goes, "You didn't even tell me." And I said, "Well, if you can make it, make it." But I told him I would record it. So I want to get right down to it. This going to be a tough. I got a lot to cover, and in some ways, this might be a tad bit premature. In the case of Paul and Herb, while I have had individual conversations with them, uh, we haven't decided what role, if any, that they might want to take. And so I thought Herb took part in a very important call yesterday. And the reason he was invited and nobody else is Herb was classmates with the guy that we had. We both were classmates. Herb and I met in high school, and Herb has 20 plus years with Dollar General store and in the supply chain side. And his career, his company made some changes, and that didn't include Herb. So he's available. And Paul was a guy I've known now for 20 years. And he was, I guess, a friend, but also a customer in a consulting project we did for his company when I was at KPMG. And we developed a friendship. And I forwarded Paul's resume to everybody. So you kind of got a background. So on a future call, I'll let all you guys get to know each other. It's just, in respect of everybody's time, I want to get kind of right down to business and throw out what I'm calling this sort of a vision call of what I think I want to do and what I think and how each person on this call, including the two that are not on the call, how I'm seeing a possible role. And you all still, especially in the Herb and Paul, you got to decide whether you want to be involved and how involved and in what role. To introduce Stanley, Stanley and I graduated with our master's degree from Nova Southeastern University in conflict resolution. And when I was still a student there, and he was already a graduate of the program, Stanley was introduced to me through mutual friends we had in the Nova program. And I ran a foreclosure summit back at the height of the foreclosure piece because I had a methodology, an approach to foreclosure mediation, foreclosure conflict resolution that was kind of unique at the time. And so that put Stanley and I in contact with each other. And so we've been basically together for 10 years. So, guys, this is emerging technology. And Paul knows this better than any of it because Paul's, as technical, if not more technical than I am. Technology is not always the solution if there isn't a market need, perception, or somebody willing to pay for it. And nobody's looking for what we're selling. Okay? And there's certain bodies of people who would not want us to be successful. And I think, it's been mentioned in individual calls, the attorneys don't see this as good stuff. Now, Stanley could talk an hour just on that subject, and we're not necessarily 1,000% in agreement, but Stanley makes his living as a mediator, a non-lawyer mediator, and he's one of the best. But he's also a certified trainer of mediation. So the Florida Supreme Court has allowed him to be a trainer. And tomorrow, the reason we're doing this call today is each month, 40 hours a week, 5 days, 8 hours, he does the mediation certification training. And you become a Supreme Court certified mediator. Well, there's some shadowing of mediation after the course that you have to do to become a full-blown mediator, but his 40-hour course is the first step. And of course, who are his clients? He starts tomorrow, and he said he's got 10, maybe 12 students. That's his kind of preferred number. And I can assure you, in all likelihood, 99.99% are either attorneys or ex-judges. Judges who retired from the bench. And again, we could go hour long just about the mental transition of attorney and or judge mediators. But I'm going to save us a lot of time, because from this point forward, and Herb heard this, might have surprised Herb yesterday, when the guy who did the videos, Dr. Dan French, which we want to be our outsourced CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, Dan has won 2 Emmy Awards. He's got his doctorate, Paul, from the University of South Florida. I know how you and I feel about academics, but Dan's not just an academic. His doctorate is in English language rhetoric, which is an obscure place, topic to get your doctorate in. But he's a comedian, a stand-up comedian. He's got a unique sense of humor, but he runs a company called 500 Rockets. And Dan built the Settle Now videos. And even this week with Google said that video about Settle Now is as good as anything they've ever seen to explain what ODR is. Okay. So, again, I'm going quick by this, but unless something shatters, I did get another bid from another lady as an outsourced CMO. I don't think her credentials stack up, but, it'll help us make Dan honest when we get his proposal. And, but when I look at what I'm calling you or having you guys about, on this call about, and I will save half of this call for questions. I'm just going to go for about 15 or 20, and then hear your all's questions. I'm getting ready to borrow $1 million against my house. My kids are not, I'd say, happy with that. If I was married, I would probably be getting a divorce because she wouldn't be happy about that. Some of the people who care the most about me in life are concerned. Dr. Becker, who would have normally been on the call, and it's not that he's not on the call because of this, but he's passionate that I shouldn't take further risk. I have $2.3 million in my money. Only about a little bit over, less than 250,000 is investment of any kind. Okay. So this is my money. Okay. And, again, my kids are educated. I got no choice. I've been thinking about it for a year, but my 2 reluctances this year, why we didn't get started faster, and Herb knows this real well, Stanley knows this real well, is I had some health things that needed some attention given to them. And luckily I'm on the other side of that. And I've realized you can't, I've known this from the very beginning, you can't do this alone. Okay. The management team is everything. And when you're out seeking investment, it is the, what do you call it? The private placement memorandum, what we might write in it. Are the numbers believable? But it's really heavy. Can the management team execute on the plan? Now, of course, you're all going to say, hey, can I see the plan? And I do have it. So after this call, I'll forward it. Paul, you've been waiting on the patent documents, and it was just I was waiting for Martha to get the NDA signed, because Martha has an attorney in her organization, and she gave the NDA to an attorney. And I've had that NDA for 10 years, and I've never had it changed. No one's even asked for a change, but she had about 6 changes, and I'm still contemplating whether I want to change it, but that's pretty common for an attorney. So I'm going to borrow $1 million. And that's 500,000 against my house and 500,000 against the patent. I'm going to immediately take 250,000 of that money and sell my house and get out of this. and then put more money in after I sell my house. So that's what I'm working to get closed. And there's sort of two options, the law firm options and what's called hard money. That's where investors lend for what we'll call non-conventional mortgages, non-conventional collateral, and they want 11% interest. Okay. Well, since I'm not planning on keeping the money or borrowing the money for a long period of time, and I can't go into Chase or Bank of America or any of these places and borrow it, I've got limited choice. Now, I'm not going to talk long about this, but just to kind of bring it in context before I get into the meat of it, you all have, yesterday I forwarded you all, Stanley's been involved, dated, anytime there's an update. I've always thought Google would be the best person to acquire the company. Okay. And so I agreed. Ted got me to sort of agree that I would go ahead and try Google to see if I could get any interest in starting with a partnership, okay, a formal partnership that would maybe fast track to an acquisition, okay? Now, if you've seen the threads yesterday, and again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this call on that, but we'll entertain some questions and thoughts about this topic. We're connected just like we did with Microsoft. Paul, these companies, these technology companies, vertically aligned. Okay. So in 2018, I had 30-year history with Microsoft. I've had breakfast and lunch with Bill Gates himself. I mean, he doesn't have me in his Rolodex, but he knows who Dave Puckett is. And I grew up with Microsoft. So I had deep connections. I had on the management team for a period of time, about a year, we had a guy named Charlie Johnson, and Charlie Johnson ran public sector for KPMG. When I ran the Microsoft practice for KPMG, I got Microsoft to invest $3 million into Charlie's ERP system that KPMG actually had its own ERP system, and Microsoft thought it had a lot of market potential for public sector. And so when they needed to rewrite it as a web app, it was a client server app, Microsoft actually invested $3 million hard dollars into that. They didn't get any stock in return. It belonged to KPMG, but Microsoft makes investments when they see it will sell their products. And what does Microsoft sell? They sell server products. Back in the old days, they sell web-based products. So if they can sell licensing as a result of the solution, we'll call it, then great. So Microsoft, back in 2018, paid Vikram, that was who we outsourced development of Settle Now, about $5,000 a month for a year to migrate over Settle Now to the Azure cloud. Now, I'm not, this isn't a technical discussion, but what I want to say by this, to get that investment, we had to align with the public sector guys at Microsoft. Well, that was easy to do because Charlie Johnson, who worked for KPMG, who I got the investment for, later went to work for Microsoft Public Sector. So when he came on board, we immediately catapulted to the top of public sector. Now, why public sector? Courts, federal courts, state courts, local courts. That's considered public sector. Microsoft has a cloud called Azure. That's what their marketing name for their cloud is. But they have two clouds. They have Azure, and then they have Azure Government. So the only people on the Azure Government cloud is United States and state, anything within the United States. No foreign governments, just the United States. So we were called Settle Now. We had that nice video from Dan, and Microsoft agreed to make that investment in the development and porting the product to Azure only because they thought they could drive public sector sales in the courts. Well, we didn't get it. or it just didn't happen. It wasn't our products, guys. It was the market. Now, again, we could talk for hours, and I'm just going real high level just to let y'all know how painful. There's not much Stanley and I haven't witnessed, and I invite both of you all to talk to Stanley privately, and he can share some of the things we've tried. But what I'll say is this. Finally, in 2019, Florida, which has 20 jurisdictions or circuits, they're called, in 6 circuits, 6 of them, they tried a pilot project for ODR, online dispute resolution, in 6 of the 20. And basically, a combination of factors contributed to those 6 projects being judged a failure. And those 6 projects were primarily divided between 2 of our competitors. And if you're not familiar with our competitors, both of you should be. Tyler, Tyler. Tyler is a publicly traded company that builds or buys companies. They're notorious for acquisitions. They don't really build anything from scratch. They wait until it's ready. And maybe some would argue we should have been acquired by Tyler, but I probably wouldn't have sold to them. But they do nothing but public sector. So everything to do with the government, period. And Paul knows government IT work isn't sexy. It isn't fun. If you have a preference and you're in an IT business, you'd rather be in private sector more so than public sector. And there's a lot of politics and there's a lot of legacy. They're not early adopters. Okay. Now we can then go to the courts. Attorneys don't like technology, but yet COVID killed the 6 projects in the sense that the projects got kicked off in 2019 and they didn't get judged a success, but also it got convoluted in and affected by COVID, right? But then by the end of 2020, 2021, Stanley and I were excited again. And Herb, you probably remember this because I know you've been a shareholder that long. We got excited again because Zoom, which we're communicating on here, the lawyers all went for Zoom. And so at least COVID forced them to do it. Now, look at Stanley's life. When Stanley used to have to do the 40-hour course, he had to rent a hotel for 5 days. People had to drive to the hotel for 5 days for 40 hours to look at Stanley's friendly face and have his training and personal touch. When COVID hit, the state of Florida made Stanley one of the first, if not the first, certified trainer to do it online. So when Stanley does his 40-hour class tomorrow, it's all online. Okay, so people are using Zoom, and the courts are still using Zoom. But there's a lot of lawyers that are on different chat blogs going, well, now that COVID's over, I can't wait till we go back to where we used to. And the legal profession is in turmoil. In Florida, there was a lot of tort reform. DeSantos is a lawyer, a JAG lawyer. He's got his eyes on the White House. Well, on his way, finishing up he's still the governor, but running for president, tort reform was a big thing. So I probably don't have the exact numbers, but 300,000 to 400,000 cases were filed in the first quarter of this year in the state of Florida that probably wouldn't have ever become lawsuits, but they were afraid tort reform would keep it from, so they wanted to file the case to have that right. Okay, so these lawyers are nervous, guys, and no matter what we do, their world's going to change. Now, Stanley and I are the only ones that live in Florida. Paul used to live in Florida and spent a lot of time here. Paul, you may remember this. They called it the Taj Mahal courtroom. Up in Tallahassee, they built this multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art badass courthouse. And it had marble and cherry wood. I mean, it was a monument. Okay. And somebody started looking what the cost is. And then somebody started questioning, why are we building courthouses when we can use this kind of technology? Okay. Now, I'm 60. Herb's 60. Paul's a little bit over 60. And Stanley's not far from 60. Oh, well, he's 10 years approximately.
51.
He's barely 50, but 51. I'm sorry, 9 years away. He's our youth at the moment. We don't have Martha here, but even using Stanley's youth and vitality, we're going to have lawyers, judges, and courthouses longer than Stanley's going to be doing professional stuff. So we can't kill the judges, we can't blow up the courthouses, and we can't kill all the lawyers. So they're going to be here. But I'm getting to a point where I don't give a shit anymore. And that's, of course, the brand. And we have to acknowledge, when you all talk to Stanley privately, Stanley makes his money being friendly to the legal system. And if the lawyers see him as anti-lawyer, then he ain't gonna have 10 people paying whatever he pays, $1,000 each to take his class. It pays Stanley's bills each month, okay? And he mediates, and he's a great mediator, but he also knows the non-lawyer mediator is a dying breed, okay? But luckily, because the lawyers like him, luckily because he's been in it for so long, he has such a stellar reputation, and I'm not just blowing smoke up his ass. I've known him for a decade, and every person I've ever met loves it. I mean, he is a very reputable guy, and we're lucky to have him. And for that matter, just to introduce it, as this year turned into this year, in 2023, I said to Stanley, maybe it's time you be CEO of the company. Now, I only had one reluctance, and we're such good friends. He knows what that reluctance is. Paul, you'd laugh at this. When you hire technology people and developers, they're either Java people or they're .NET people or they're Novell people or they're whatever. There's 10 ways to do everything in technology. But once you know that's the way you do it, it's hard to teach the old dog new tricks, okay? Stanley's been mediating. Stanley's entire existence is around this profession. And here he has me as his partner with this new concept called avoidcourt.com. Now, we covered for that by creating a new parent company. The parent company is Cognitive Resolution Solutions Corporation. Now, we've been using AI since the beginning. But what's unfortunately happening this year with AI, and I think the lawyers love this, is they're starting to make AI be the enemy. And it's not ethical. And it's bad. And there's judges now where they're using ChatGPT, these lawyers being lazy, having them write motions and filings and things like that. And the judges know that these are computer generated. So it's given the legal industry a little bit of breathing room because they're going to fuel this. Now, Stanley will remember that 5 years ago, I anticipated this. And I was trying to get people like Morgan & Morgan and the big mega firms to donate to creating Florida as a hotbed for AI, and specifically AI and the ethical utilization of AI. Stanley, I was saying that 5 years ago, okay? Yeah. But now that it's real and ChatGPT is just one of the commercial products that are out there, and on the call yesterday, Herb, I don't know if you'd ever heard that much about ChatGPT. I don't know if you went out to Dan's 500 Rockets website, but he has ChatGPT on his homepage. It's there. Well, it's in my patent too, guys. It's part of an engine that humans can use, supervising it. And I think that's the thing, if I want to drill into you guys. I don't want to talk about mediation anymore. I don't want to talk about arbitration. We're doing dispute resolution. We're doing electronic negotiation. Okay. We are doing TEDR. I know that's a term that Stanley likes and Stanley's comfortable with. Technology enhanced dispute resolution. Now, Herb, I didn't want to go deep or argue with Dan. Yesterday was a reacquainting call for you and Dan, but you did hear me kind of correct him a little bit. I said, because Dan wanted to talk about mediation and mediation. I said, Dan, it's been a while since we talked. The company's making a pivot. We're trying to get a new management team together. Once we have a management team together, we'll start talking strategy. But let me say, we're never going to say the word mediation.
Right.
Now, let me back up from that. Okay. In 2013, we had a powwow on Treasure Island, and all of the leading thought, not all, many of the leading thought leaders in ADR, alternative dispute resolution, came here. Practitioners like Stanley from other states, people that make their living in mediation. Okay. And there was a lot for that week. It was a whole week-long thing, and I could come up with a million things that probably leads to where we are today that came from that meeting. But what I'll never forget was a guy named Dr. Brian Polkinghorne, who runs the master's program at Salisbury Salisbury University, I think so, in Maryland. He said, Dave, I foresee a problem. And I said, okay. This is in 2013. We were still using the word mediator and mediation. Every state, all 50 of them, have different criteria for mediation certification. I'm just saying this humorously and fast. If I wanted to run a billboard on I-95, which is the east coast of Florida, and I-75, which is the west coast of Florida, and put my face on it and say, Dave Puckett, the greatest mediator in Florida, I mediate anything and I'm the best and I'm free for the first 30 minutes. There's no law that I need to be a certified mediator. The only reason you have to be a certified mediator is you can't get court referred mediation. Okay. So if court refers, and poor Stanley's last name is Zamor, Z-A-M-O-R. You know how the lists come from the state alphabetically. So poor Stanley you don't see Zamor to the end. Okay. So Stanley is a Supreme Court certified mediator. He's a Supreme Court certified trainer mediator. But you do not have to be a mediator. But what Dr. Polkinghorne's point is he said, if you're going to do mediation, you got a liability to maintain the certification of anybody that you have working on it. So Stanley also teaches a 40-hour course, but there's continuing ed, and you got to stay current with your continuing ed. And so it's just like Uber drivers. If an Uber driver gets a DUI or loses his or her license, Uber needs to know, right? Uber has a financial fiduciary responsibility to know. So Brian was warning us that tracking mediation credentials was going to be a nightmare. And we've always known that. Okay. Now also, and I'm going quick and throwing a lot like a fire hose at y'all today, but I'm just trying to teach you what we learned for 10 years in case you're all talking to friends. Hey, I'm thinking about doing this with this company. What do you think? I'm trying to tell you, there ain't much we haven't thought about, but I'd be great to hear some things we haven't. It would actually make me feel good. But we're not going to push mediation anymore. We're going to let the lawyers own mediation. Okay. We got to make a big decision. And that's why I forwarded the Google stuff. What did I do again? I made contact with Google public sector. So all those 4 or 5 guys I sent you all an email on, I don't know if you all did it, but I went and found out who they were, and I LinkedIn friend request them. Of course, my credentials are all there, so they know why I'm LinkedIn friend request. I looked at their education, I looked at their background, I looked at where they came from. There's some people who came from Microsoft, there's some people who came from AWS, and so these guys are asking us questions of market share, right? And all they care about is court market share. And I evaded the answer because I've got to make a strategic decision quickly. Are we going to offer anything to the courts? Are we going to let Matterhorn and Tyler, that's our 2 competitors. Matterhorn, by the way, is founded off of the campus, Herb, just a little north of you, the University of Michigan, and specifically the University of Michigan Law School. Okay. Now, Tyler bought one of our competitors, and the company was called Modria. And if you start to look at this industry, you're going to find the CEO, the former CEO of Modria, Colin Rule, R-U-L-E. And Colin wrote the book, him and two other guys, that sort of coined the term ODR, online dispute resolution. So that is the brand, for lack of a better word, that this industry is often called ODR. But remember, the original brand, ADR, alternative dispute resolution. If we went into a busy restaurant today in Miami and I stood up with my big mouth and said, hey, I want everybody's attention, I got $100 bills to give out, can anybody tell me what ADR is? Most likely nobody could. Can anybody tell me what ODR is? Most likely nobody could. I put that $100. And in our little brand, technology enhanced dispute resolution, I can guarantee nobody knows, because we've not spent any effort to build that brand. And Herb, you took part yesterday. Everything is going to be brand, and marketing. And as a management team, and that's why Stanley, you and I haven't really talked at length about this, and I'm just saying this for the first time for the benefit of everybody. I like Paul and Stanley. I mean, I like Paul and Herb because they don't know a goddamn thing about this shit. Okay? I mean, to me, that's good. Stanley, you and I have been eating, breathing, and trying to figure out how to make it work within a traditional infrastructure. But as you've heard me say, Stanley, and as you heard me say yesterday, Herb and Paul, I know I've said, Uber and Lyft didn't call cab companies and limo companies and say, hey, can I have some of your business? How do I get in your business? Do you want to partner? Airbnb and VRBO didn't call Hilton, Hyatt, you know, whatever. They just come in and took the damn business. And that's what I'm planning on doing with this $1 million, unless y'all talk me out of it. Meaning, you know, I do have a friendship with each one of you all, and that's valuable. And the only value, I told Paul, I said, I don't want any yes people. I like in another week, y'all got to quit being sponges, and y'all got to think about this, and you got to start telling me why I'm wrong, or why you think I'm wrong, or challenge me, or just don't. It's a complete fruitless exercise. That's why I'm going through this all today, like just brain dump. So I want to go with these social media marketing to demographics like 25 to 50 years old. And I want to use social media marketing and 30-second, 60-second commercials to get people to come to avoidcourt.com. Okay. Now, avoidcourt.com will be a product, one product of Cognitive Resolution Solutions. We are a software development company. And again, why I'm being a little bit slow to Google in response, or figuring out even if I want to respond to them, what do I want from Google? I think I want at minimum them to say where they're if they're going to be our cloud, and Paul knows this, we've primarily got 3 clouds: Google, AWS, and Microsoft. By the way, Paul, Wednesday night, tomorrow night, I'm at the Valverde's for dinner, and I'm going to get to get what is Amazon's pushing her out. That either she has to move to the mothership or give up her career. So I'm going to get a little more insight. But AWS has about 75% of the market. So Microsoft and Google cloud are small. And I think we can use that to our advantage. And I think we beat the Microsoft horse as far as we can beat it. I don't see any sense in going back to it. But if we don't get the results from Google, then I'll be sucking up to AWS by next week. Okay. But my possible error in Google, or little stop point, is the people we're talking to is public sector. So they want to hear public sector stuff, court stuff, and they don't likely want to hear avoidcourt.com, because when you say those 2 words, it doesn't sound too courthouse friendly, does it? Now, the irony in it is, as we floated it around here to various people, including lawyers, and judges. They love it. They said the courts are too backlogged. These are cases, dollar amounts they don't want to do and don't service anyway. And we're going to take the backlog off the docket. So maybe a void court isn't that bad. But right now, that group of people at Google I made contact with is almost a repeat of Microsoft. If they think our solution is such, it's got to be written, the patent and the underlying elements of the patent have to match to what the Google cloud is. Example, AI. I don't know if you know this, Chat GPT is hosted on Google. Zoom is hosted on Amazon. 75% of people use Amazon. And if we don't go Amazon, there's got to be a damn good reason we don't, which the only reason we wouldn't is because what I've said, I just still believe they're our best acquisition target. So basically net, go borrow the $1 million, burn it, hope it lasts 4 months, hope we get some traction. Oh, I forgot one important part, and I'm going to shut up and leave it for questions. One final part. Vertical markets. I mentioned it earlier. Okay. Kleiner Perkins, the VC firm, Sand Hill Road, one of the largest, depending on the year, whatever deal these guys underwrite, they're the biggest VC in the technology. But Kleiner Perkins has been one of the biggest for 20 years. And they allowed me to pitch in 2016 as a friend because of my reputation and their experience with me at KPMG. They're the ones that picked Google as the best acquisition for us, exit strategy. But that was 2016. This is 2023. But it was in 2016, and it's not beyond question. You often question this, Herb. You'd be a great one to question this. They said, David, you need to do something that none of your competitors have ever done. Get multiple vertical markets. Modria sold out to Tyler for public sector. Matterhorn came out of a law school, public sector. CyberSettle was the biggest company, the most successful, 96 million in venture capital. We need money. Supposedly 400 million in revenue, unaudited. But they only did one thing, self-insured cities. City of New York, a bus hits you, your car, and you want to file a suit, they're self-insured. So you don't go to Geico or, Allstate or whatever. You deal with their people. And that guy that started CyberSettle is a lawyer. And he had all the clients. So all he did was sell ODR to his clients. So Kleiner Perkins said, David, don't try to be profitable. Paul, I think that might make you nervous. Herb, that probably make you real nervous. And it's not that I don't want to be profitable, but we're not going to become profitable quick. Okay. Pilot projects. Paul, you know what a pilot project is, proof of concept. If you're lucky, especially on emerging technology, let's say we're pitching, y'all know my prime target is AARP. If we get them to pay 20 cents of the dollar it costs for a pilot project, we'd be pretty lucky. You always want to put some skin in the game. You're going, it's free. We'll do it for free. That's suspicious. But we need 5 pilot projects. According to Kleiner Perkins, our growth strategy is 5 pilot projects, 100 cases each. They said, we don't need revenue. We don't care how much your revenue is. We want 5 vertical markets clients that says this shit works for them. Okay. Now you might be even most confused, and I will end here. You might go, well, wait a minute, Dave, you said you're going to market on Facebook and Instagram. Is that a vertical? Yeah, that's a consumer. That's a consumer play. We need 4 others. Martha, that's not on the call. She talked to Stanley last week independently. She represented to me because she does family mediations in Texas. She could bring 100 cases. I said, if we hire you to come part of the management team, can you bring us 100 cases? That would be family law. That would be a vertical. Okay. We need verticals. So that's what I want to do. That's the, high level, quick fire hose. So the balance will be questions. Don't say there's no questions. That's going to be bad.
So Dave, I lost a little bit when you were on about the trial, was it with Settle Now and Microsoft? Right?
So Microsoft agreed if we would, it was written as a Java app, pure Java code. Okay.
Okay.
Microsoft isn't anti-Java. It's just they're pro Azure Cloud. And Azure Cloud has all these stacks, AI stack, right? So the application had to be changed to run on Azure. We estimated that to be about a 3-month project. It ended up taking about 6. But Microsoft, just like Google, just like AWS, they'll invest what I call, it's known in the industry, soft money and hard money, or real money. Okay. So their real money is it was either $3,000 or $5,000 a month to the software development company that I was working for us to port it over. Okay. But they also gave us soft dollars. They gave us 3 Microsoft consulting resources full time to work with Vikram's team. Okay. So when we need to marry our cloud partner, but our cloud partner needs to date us in public. They need to put their arm around us, right? And
But
Microsoft,
did it get ported over to Microsoft?
yes, Settle Now got ported over to Microsoft, but that port was finished in about late 2018, early 2019. We were sidetracked by an acquisition offer from CyberSettle that went on for 6 months. Then, oh gosh, damn it, DXC Corporation. DXC Corporation is the old HP Consulting and the old PricewaterhouseCoopers Consulting. DXC. They bought TriBridge, Paul, from Tampa. TriBridge, yeah, they did, a big old Microsoft partner. And so when we were up at Microsoft made the obvious suggestion. And I'm glad you asked this question because I was throwing out a lot. DXC has every vertical. They're big in public sector. That's one reason they bought TriBridge from Tampa, because TriBridge was big in public sector. And so Microsoft basically said, you need DXC to go win those big government contracts, because government's not going to write a contract to Settle Now Corporation, and they're not going to write one to voidcourt.com Corporation. Okay. So DXC was going to acquire and license our technology, and we're just going to white label it, and they're going to call it whatever. Okay. And I spent $60,000 of my money doing contracts for the licensing for DXC. And our friends at TriBridge were leading it. They were our primary interface point. DXC then ended up, after 6 months, not being very happy with TriBridge. They didn't think that was all that good of an acquisition. They started firing a lot of those guys. And then our thing got kind of caught up, because they go, well, we're not going to invest in any new solutions right now.
What did we call the guy who owned TriBridge? I knew him real well.
Tony Bennett.
That's it.
Yeah, Tony.
Yeah.
Tony.
Tony
Hell of a
B.
nice guy. And
Yeah.
the guys, what's his name? Oh shit, Paul. I get this every once in a while. I apologize. Mark Blumenthal and Tom Wallace of Florida Funders kind of helped them put all that deal together with DXC. Okay. So, and by the way, those guys at Florida Funders love me. They know my history record, and they love to write us a check. But until we have pilot projects and some revenue, it'd just be them sticking it right up my ass. They just, it would hurt. Okay. So we can make that call, or we go to Sand Hill Road. But what the last thing that Sand Hill Road said to me, and I was speaking Kleiner Perkins, they said, David, you're going to need millions to build a brand. So you go get us 5 pilot projects with 100 cases. We don't even care if they're profitable. We just want 99 of the 100 cases to go. This is good stuff. This is good technology. This works. They said they can get us the money. Come back and knock on the door when we got 5 projects showing applicability across 5 verticals.
So quick question, Dave. So you get your $1 million loan, right? So now you sat there and you got the money on the desk here. Now, if you had to put it into piles as to where you're going to spend it, right?
That's a CFO question. And Dave Puckett, if you're going to put me, and Herb's going to laugh at this, I'm going, how much is the 5 are you guys going to cost me for a few months? That comes out of the bucket. Dan French, after I hung up on the call, Herb already trying to do the job that I think Herb might be, sort of operations kind of thing. I guess he must have been talking to Dan, like, what do you want? Of course, for them to market for us to be outsourced CMO, they got to do strategy with the management team. We did loosely agree that September, October would be strategy. November, December would be build for January launch. But I think, and correct me if I'm misrepresenting this, Herb, I think he said it'd be about 25,000, 30,000 a month just for strategy. Okay. And marketing, it's everything. So it's, that's going to take the bucket. And then of course, development, but development dollars will be complemented. Like my response to Google today will probably be something like this: guys, let's date in public. Let's just be partners. We'll start with public sector, see if y'all can get us a vertical market. That'd be a project. In the meantime, give us some soft dollars and hard dollars and give us some people, right? Once then, we're going to date them. We know it's going to be their cloud platform. Then Eddie would ask them, are we going to use one of their partners and hire them? Or are we going to go back to the people we used before for Settle Now in India and do it that way? But the part I want you to be real clear on that, and I know Stanley understands that you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but let's assume each one of you all, I'm going to pick on Herb here. Herb used to work for Dollar General Store. Herb was in supply chain for Dollar General Store. So whether it's Dollar General or whether it's Walmart, Herb knows supply chain. There's conflicts in supply chain. That's a pilot project. We only need 100. Okay. So we would go to them. So Herb would have the question, when are you ready? Okay. Well, y'all going to think I'm on crack when I'm going to say it. I'm ready today, but not really. The website looks so shitty. That's why I don't even really promote it. Now, Dan goes, we'll build a website and make it look pretty. Okay. Making it look pretty is good. But right now it has the core functionality active that we need at a minimum, the case intake form. Okay. Now, Morgan & Morgan, for the people, I tested this a couple of months ago because I had a little potential medical malpractice issue. I had enough of a potential medical malpractice issue that I wanted to test Morgan & Morgan to see how automated they were. They're not automated for shit. Okay. Yes, I could go on forward to people and say med malpractice, heart, that. But then they call you and they want to find out the case. Then they want to refer you to the lawyers, right? There is no automation other than the intake. Okay. Now,
well, it's funny you should
know.
Go ahead.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said, it's funny you should say that because I can go back many, many years and I hate to do that, but sometimes the history is predictor of the future, right?
Right.
And, I don't know if you remember when, computers were first getting into telecom and we were getting into stored program switches, etc., right? And I went to AT&T for a demo of their 5ESS when it was coming out, right? And the guy said, type on this computer, you can ask it any question you want, all right? About the status of a line or customer or whatever, He said, you can even ask it the weather, So I said, okay, so I tried it. I forget what I asked it now, but I asked it some techie questions and some non-techie questions. They, just a regular keyboard terminal. I mean, they came back with brief but good answers each time, right? You know, so I'm talking to the guy afterwards and I said, I'm impressed. He said, don't be too impressed. There's a guy in the back room typing it back to you, you know. He said,
Well,
but the point I was going to prove is, he said, when we're trying to figure out what to do for customer service, that's what we do. And then we automate where the questions are coming, right? We don't spend time automating things that are never going to get used. And I thought, you know, that was 30 years ago. I thought, wow, I'd never thought of looking at things that way. But
well,
that's pretty much what you're saying.
and guess where we are? We're in a slightly different place, but for the same reasons. Okay. You just said what I wanted to say better, you know, in a story. Okay. Right now, that attorney that founded Cyber Settle, and I think I mentioned it to you all before, but let's level play and make sure we're all on the same page. He was a lawyer that litigated, and he had a case for 5 years between this city and his client. So he had opposing counsel on the other side, filing briefs, milking their clients for money. This old judge was retiring. Okay. And the old judge pulled him in and said, man, I've had this goddamn case in my room for 5 years, and I'm not handing it over to the new judge. You two are going to settle this goddamn thing. And he says, I'm going to give you 2 pieces of paper, 2 envelopes, 2 pens. Y'all go on the other side of the room, and you tell me what you want and what you'd settle for, seal it up, and we're going to settle this goddamn thing. Okay. This guy, Charlie Brofman, y'all can look him up. He's on my on my LinkedIn, and you should look him up. Okay. Charlie's probably about your age, Paul. He's a few years older than me. Charlie went back and said, fuck, I'm going to patent this. It's called double blind bid. That's all it is. The patents that were held by Cyber Settle was an automated fucking envelope. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you settle for. Okay. So don't be scared of the technology that we don't yet have. We have the patent. We're going to license the patent. We want to build technology for other people. We've got the domain expertise in conflict resolution. And yeah, we're going to launch a product called Settle Now. I mean, we're going to launch a product called avoidcourt.com unless Stanley convinces the two of you all that y'all got to get to Dave. That's the wrong name. We don't like that name. Stanley he knows why that name is going to cause attention and UPL, unauthorized practice law. But back to what you said, Paul, TEDR, technology enhanced dispute resolution. Remember what I began this call saying that Dr. Polkinghorn said, don't use mediators. Don't advertise mediation. Advertise facilitation. Advertise negotiation. Advertise dispute resolution. But don't say mediation, because then they're going to say, what are your credentials and da-da-da-da-da. And go straight to the consumer. Okay? Well, if they fill out the case intake, it comes to me or Stanley. We're the best humans in the world to call and say, how can we help you? Then we can say, we're going to send you the thing here. Tell me what you want, what you'd settle for, right? You start manual and then you automate, right? And the problem with Matterhorn and Tyler, and Stanley could have this separate conversation with you. The reason those 6 pilot projects fail, integration. These fucking court systems are written in COBOL. When we had COVID in Florida, national news, we couldn't print unemployment checks. The reason we couldn't put unemployment checks is the goddamn unemployment system's written on COBOL. They had to bring IBM retired people your age, Paul, back out to write the fucking code, to band-aid it, print the checks. Well, all 20 jurisdictions in Florida, this is one state. There's 49 other states. They're all disparate. So they need to build a black box to have the solution speak to the black box to speak to legacy systems. They didn't build the black box because they don't even know what that fucking means, because they're all trying to build the Taj Mahal of ADR or ODR solutions. Okay. There is no doubt Tyler's solution is a good solution. Why? It came from eBay. They're doing 60 million disputes. Colin Rule wrote a book called ODR or The Future of ODR. Nobody read the goddamn book except for the founders of eBay. So eBay had PayPal for escrow, and eBay had online dispute resolution for disputes interstate. because if you cross state lines, it don't matter what the fucking lawyers say because it doesn't apply. But they try to make it apply. Like if I buy a car from you, Paul, in Carolinas, and I want to sue you, I got to go to Carolinas and sue you. All right. Well, that's what they want to do. But eBay knew that would tarnish their market. So they knew they had a vested interest to resolve the dispute without litigation. That's what we're doing. Try us before you go. If we can't resolve your dispute. Dr. Becker, if he was on the call, he just said it already 100 times, if not 1,000. Give him 15 minutes for free. If you talk to Stanley for 15 minutes, you're going to sign up with Stanley. He's the best. So we're going to automate from the point of the intake form. And guess one of the first places we can automate? ChatGPT. What do you recommend? Here's a potential settlement. Email it to them. Eventually, you make it all automated, but you got to make your cloud partner. You got to make your language, and you got to buy components because you're not going to create components from scratch. So development isn't like what it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. 80% of the solution of Settle Now we bought as components. Okay, licensed. Okay. And that's my least of my concern. But I'll make AARP point here. AARP has 60 million old people. When I say, 50 years or older, right? So it's not really old. I'm 60. What would it take for Stanley to train a mature person to become a dispute resolution professional? I'd say our subcontractors, like our Uber subcontractors and Lyft subcontractors, might be AARP people. Gray hair, reasonable, logical, rational, try to help people talk. What is disputes? 90% of disputes emotion. That's why everybody loves Stanley's face. He is an animated lover kind of guy. He's peaceful and he's good. You can't create that on a computer. So it's going to be a blend of TEDR, technology enhanced dispute resolution. Our competitors think it's technology for everything, and they're going to get slammed on AI, and it's just going to slow them up. So I say, fuck the courts. Okay, that's my vote. Now you go, well, I guess we got to do what you want to do because it's your $1 million. No, that's what this call is about. I'm tired of doing what we want to do. Stanley and I are a wealth of knowledge for you and Herb and Eddie. But then also say, y'all been doing it the same way. Y'all, that's the way it's been doing. And if we're going to disrupt, we got to do it a different way. Herb, any questions? Are you?
Yeah, I'm there. I was curious how since you've been doing this for a while, what kind of customer response or interest have you had, over the years in some of these?
We did a bunch of test cases. We did a bunch of free cases. What I've made something, Stanley makes a living doing mediation. I've made living resolving disputes that are not court referred mediation. Stanley trains, consult. So the company has been there. Now, to your question, if I'm building a website for cognitive and only cognitive, it'd be we develop dispute resolution systems for you. We'll white label our technology. We'll license our patent. That's a cognitive play. Stanley, we could do training, okay, and we could do old school mediation. Old school mediation meaning mediation without lawyers. And there's a real appetite for that because people are about sick of lawyers. So to your question, we didn't have enough success. We couldn't get a pilot project at all. We couldn't give away one. And so after COVID, I just pulled it back and said, well, Settle Now technology is done. Because Settle Now technology was an end-all for mediators. It could not work without a mediator. what we're calling the next generation platform, i.e. avoidcourt.com, is going to be technology enhanced dispute resolution, centering on a client manager of the case. So there's a human point of contact and automation when needed. And that automation and utilization of automation will be directed by the case manager. So almost like you sign on for an Uber driver and say, I want to drive today. You load the app, you set in your underwear, or, you know, as long as you look good from the torso up, you can, a professional from the torso up, you help these people. That's the key differentiator. We're not trying to be all technology. We want that human touch point. Does that help you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand. Also talking to Dan yesterday, he seemed to think
You went quiet. I don't. You're hard to hear. I don't know if it's just me.
I don't
Go ahead.
know. Talking to Dan yesterday, it seemed to.
Hold
he
on.
seemed to
Are
think-
you all hearing Herb, or is it just me?
Yeah, I'm hearing him.
He's clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Herb. I guess I'm. Go ahead.
Okay. So talking to Dan yesterday, he seemed to think that overseas, they are in a lot of countries, they already have kind of some of this software. Are you familiar with that and what?
Oh,
the
absolutely. Australia, New Zealand, Belgium, EU. These countries are ahead of us. One of our competitors, I can't think of his name now, he just says, fuck the United States, fuck the attorneys. All you're going to do is fight with the attorneys, and he's doing Latin America. He ported his whole platform to Portuguese and Spanish and said, fuck it.
Wow. Okay. So why wouldn't they take some, if that software and that kind of thing's already out there, why wouldn't they, why
Oh,
can we not
I don't
utilize
think
that?
it is. I don't think that anything out there. I mean, I think we could build a business forgetting about Avoid Court and the new platform and rewrite Settle Now for the courts. And if Google just flat ass needs a court solution, we might say, okay, let's port Settle Now over, because I think Settle Now is as good as anything that Dan's referring to. But where these other countries have the advantage is they see dispute resolution stronger than litigation, right? These other countries they're not as legal centric as we are.
Okay.
You follow me?
Yeah.
Stanley, you got anything to add? You're the quiet. I haven't given you any time today. You want to echo anything I said? You want to disagree with anything I said, or give the guys any insight from your point of view?
Like I said, I've been part of what Dave's been trying to envision for years, over a decade, because I believe in it. It's going to work. You got to have a human component, as he said, which is what makes this better than most, because you got to have that little je ne sais quoi. You got to have that little touch. You have to have that the ability to make people feel that this is theirs and only theirs, and most of those other competitors can't do it. So we definitely are above everyone else, in my opinion. There's nothing else that can touch it, because everyone wants to be strictly on how do you marry the new technology and the old integrated system. It's not going to work. It's not going to work that way. And I don't know why they haven't figured it out. And I've spoken to some people about it. They just don't get it. We get it. It's a matter of, can we get these products up and going to show them? And as you saw, again, I've been doing online platform mediation since 2002, 2003. I've been using some online platform, and I've been told lawyers will never use it. Well, it wasn't until COVID happened and the Supreme Court of Florida said you have to keep cases going. You have to continually have hearings. Mediations must not stop. Once they decreed that, everyone fell in line. So it's that thing that they've always said. The legal field is very slow to react, and they only want to react to what the Supreme Court says to do, or what their customers say to do. So it's gonna be where it is right now, but it's only gonna get better if we get our chance to put our foot in the door. So I believe in it. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, how do you see this? Since it is a void court, and which is obviously in the face of attorneys and judges, and you're so entwined with attorneys and judges through your mediation school, how will you navigate through that?
Well, the one thing I know I do, especially if anyone hears me speak about conflict resolution, is about options, about generating options, the ability to generate options. So whether it's AI, whether it's a very seasoned, skillful third-party neutral like myself or others, their ability to connect with people happens, and it's options that it creates. So those that are now fearful because of what happened recently in New York, a very prominent lawyer got paid probably $1,000 or $1,200 an hour to do cases. I mean, again, $1,000 an hour, and to submit a brief in a very important case at the appellate level, where 6 of your citations were done by AI, were made up cases. Yeah, everyone's gonna be pausing and worried about that. But we're not gonna be even offering that type of thing, because regardless of what our AI assists with, you're gonna have, again, I'm very ethical. I'm so ethical it pisses Dave off. I don't like avoidcourt.com only because of the verbiage that the court, that the rules I have to follow will not let you use. But you can say conciliation. You can say consulting. You can say facilitation. There are over 12 different things in ADR. Mediation is only that much of it, only 10 to 50%. So as long as we know the right verbiage to use, people will come. And again, you asked a good question. What's the clientele? There's over 110,000 lawyers in Florida, right? Less than 20% get actually served by those 20 people, those over 109,000. Only 20% of Floridians. So where are the 80% going? They're not bringing their cases to court. They can't afford it, don't know it. They're not even doing it. They're taking it out themselves, whatever that might be, fisticuffs or trying. This will give the other 80% a grand of opportunity to figure it out themselves. But they have to know it's there. They have to know nothing's guaranteed, but definitely an option is there for them. So that's how I see it. It's creating options. I get called at least 10 times a month from pro se litigants that I don't particularly like to work with, because pro se litigants think, you're my lawyer, you're working with me. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a pure neutral. Only arbitrations, only mediations, and consulting on how to resolve things through options. So, but if we have this on board, it would be like, hey, funnel your case through this option, and maybe you'll find a solution that works for you. And if anything, you'll at least be given a broad amount of options to choose from. And that's what I hope this will show.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I
Herb, let me
appreciate
add
your
here.
enthusiasm.
Oh, he's got it. He's the man. Let me give you something, because your question made me think of something. I'll make sure I said. We had a judge
Back up,
that
Dave.
we talked to for about 6 months at least. This would have been late fall, the COVID year, through about Memorial Day weekend of 2021. And we were tapping her to be CEO. Dr. Becker said that if we have a CEO, it needs to be female, because ADR, if it had a gender, would be female. And I don't know if Stanley would agree with that. And after what y'all have seen in meeting Stanley today, I think he's one of the best. But and she's a judge. She's part of the system. We liked Judge Carroll a lot because she was what I'd call a non-conventional judge. She didn't take herself too damn seriously. And she said, fuck it, blow up the court. It needs to be blown up. It's broken. But of course, she was retiring, right? She lives over on the East Coast. We could still tap into her. But she said, I am not coming on as CEO with a fucking, her words, named settle. Settle anything. Cyber settle, competitor, smart settle, settle now, resolve now, zip settle. Everything we've had up to this point is settled. So one day I went for a run and I came back and I said, I looked it up as avoidcourt.com. And she said, and it was, and I called her immediately. This is judge, 25 years on the bench. Is our brand. That is what we want. That is our marketing message. And you heard Dan say yesterday, kind of I like it.
I absolutely respect what and believe. It's not. Do I think Stanley might be right? I know there's elements of the legal community, if we're identified as avoidcourt.com, that is not going to like us, and I know it could tarnish Stanley, and I can't. And well, Stanley wouldn't allow us to. Stanley can't date us in public and put his arm around us. Stanley can't be the CEO. If we're going to do anything, it's going to tarnish Stanley's ability to make money, which he makes money by training lawyers and ex-judges to be a mediator, and he makes money, and he's got 20+ year reputation that he can't walk away from. Now, that's unless we're paying Stanley big dollars. And if we're paying Stanley big dollars, then Stanley might be willing to do something more than he is, because he's gun shy, and it's the right word. So now I'm not. I am solutions developing, and we developed that product that they want to be named for one market segment, but we can create 10 URLs pointed at it. And what I want the bottom of the website to say, as well as anybody that licensed a patent, is powered by Cognitive Resolution Solutions. We're the underlying dispute resolution engine for it.
Dave, your
And
video has gone to
I've
hell
got
to
the
me. I don't know
attitude.
if it has to everybody else.
You started to fade out, Dave. I think your connection.
I didn't hear what you said. Go ahead.
Your
I think
video
you're
has
gonna-
gone. I don't. To me, I can't see a damn thing. I can see a ceiling fan now.
Well, yeah, the problem is,
There you
for
go,
some
that's
reason,
better.
I can't hear you guys, so I have to put that. Yeah, I've got to put my speaker up to my ear to hear you. I don't know what happened. I've never had this problem ever, but I didn't want it to be a distraction on the call, so that's why
Oh, okay.
I can't. When y'all talk, I have to pull it away so I can hear the speaker for some reason.
That's okay.
So
Hang on.
we're an hour and 15, and I only wanted you guys for about an hour. We've thrown a lot out. Let me try to wrap up. He's recording it. I want to have individual conversations with each one of you guys this week. I want by the end of this week, no later than next week, because next week is the end of the month. Are the two of you guys going to be on the management team? I think to make that decision, I think each one of you might want to talk to Stanley a little bit more on your own, get to know you. Okay? I'd like to have Stanley be our CEO. He's kind of de facto what he and I agreed to. But we've got to be careful we got to get his concurrence once we decide the strategy of what the management team's going to be. We could have Stanley be CEO of Cognitive, but not related to avoidcourt.com. But I don't think avoidcourt.com long-term, if it's positioned properly, is going to be a problem. But I'm willing to borrow the money. I've went through, $2.5 million, and we ain't got nothing out of it. But guess what? My competitors shot their wad. One got 96 million. They're out of business. One got 40 million, and he's got a good sales mechanism. He's trying to hire Stanley a couple of weeks ago, or trying to get Stanley to buy his product. I'm speaking of Smart Settle. Modria, they rode that eBay moniker right into Silicon Valley. They went to one of those, tech shows, and they got $15 million. Okay. They burnt through the $15 million. They didn't get no pilot projects. They didn't get anything, but they got bought by Tyler. And Paul, you know how that went. Tyler gave them a bunch of Tyler publicly traded stock to all the investors. So they were whole, and all the management team are gone. And now Tyler looked at us a year ago in 2021, and we had serious dialogue about them maybe going to market with us. But basically, Tyler said, we see 2022 as nothing's going to happen. 2023, there might be some pilot projects. And 2024 is going to be when this market finally takes off. So we're not fucking investing anything right now. We're waiting for 2024. That's what Tyler told us 18 months ago. Okay. Matterhorn and Tyler are burning money fast, trying to get in the courthouses, and they can't get in. Tyler can because they're already in, but their solution is not set for them. It was built as an e-commerce solution for eBay, and they can't integrate it.
So they're getting tarnished by their inability to integrate. So Stanley, I mean, I'm going to say it publicly in the call. If we're not going to use the avoidcourt.com brand, we got to have a brand that we can go straight to the consumers. Because I'm going to, if I'm borrowing, and Stanley, it's your personal financial matters or anybody else on this phone call, it does not matter. It's the only one is mine. Okay. Is I'm not borrowing $1 million to only be a court-based mediator, legal community thing. I'm willing to do both, but I'm not going without the consumer piece, and I'm not going without the business piece. And we really talk about the business piece, but I have individually that's getting a mediation clause written for business contracts so that businesses start pushing consumers to this. I had the call with the HR company last week. Greatest call I've had. They will do a pilot project. I should have mentioned this on the first of the call. It's called Puzzle HR. They're out of Tampa, Paul. I told you about this. And the guy goes, well, I don't know how much value it might have to the HR department of our various clients because they do outsourced HR, human resource management. He goes, but every one of the employees of our company, our clients would love this service as an inexpensive alternative to the legal marketplace. And I said, so you're basically saying you'd be open for a pilot project, but not a pilot project where we would be resolving HR conflicts for your clients, but for conflicts employees of your clients have. Absolutely. So we need to figure out there's conflicts everywhere. We need to tailor and pick 5 of them and go at it. We can't take all 5 immediately, but that's kind of what I got today. It's a lot, but you all talk about it. Call me. Let's set a goal the end of next week. We need to see if we have a management team or we don't. Think about what I've said, good, bad, and ugly. I can't do this by myself. And I just feel blessed that,
I would like to
Very
see the pattern that you have, if you could, just to understand a little more what you're leveraging.
All right, well, I owe it to you. So the 2 things I'm going to do, I was waiting for that. I'm going to send you, and Herb, I'll send it to you too, because I think you've seen it. But Eddie is the other thing I was waiting on, Paul, is when we did the conflict check for the patent, it's the first step. We passed the conflict check, meaning it looks like we have very few potential conflicts. However, there's about 3 pieces that I didn't put in the document. And so Eddie is adding the drawings. I put it in. So I should have that by today. So my goal is tomorrow afternoon, I will send you both the patent latest, what I'm going to file. I mean, I'll probably file it tomorrow for provisional. And then we did a $5 million private placement memorandum about 18, 20 months ago because we were thinking about going into crowdfunding, and I still have that. And it's still about 90% accurate on everything that we went over today. So I think it'll help paint the picture more fully. Paul, you think that will help?
Yeah, and I sent you my NDA, right? I'll be honest, I just signed it.
I got yours immediately, but she sent hers to an attorney and then redlined it. And my first reaction was, I'm not changing. I haven't changed it in 10 years. And so finally last night I said, tell me what you want to change. I don't know what it is. But
to me, those documents, I mean, they're written by the people we're talking about, lawyers, right? But I mean,
right.
I've signed hundreds of those, and I mean, as long as they're not taking my life away, I'm not too picky, to be honest.
Well, I think what her concern lies is there's a couple of things about you can't take some of what we're doing and go elsewhere with it. And I think since there's not a firm offer with a job on the table yet, she's concerned by signing it, she might be procuring herself from other opportunities.
Yeah, usually prior knowledge coming into them don't count, right? I mean,
I agree with you. I agree. All right,
the other thing,
we got 90 minutes out of you all today.
The other thing I'd say one other thing, Dave. All right.
Yes, sir.
And and I'm most likely not qualified to say this, but that doesn't usually stop me from saying things, right? You know, I understand your passion with going with $1 million, but the reason I asked the question, you know, I've been down this road with some entrepreneurs before, and I think it's very important that we have a plan of how we're trying to cross the river, where the stepping stones are, and that the funding, you know, builds those stepping stones, right? I mean, I'm not sure at this point, from all you've said, is it training a number of ARP people? Is it building technology? Is it building black box integration with existing technology? I don't have that. If you have it, that's
Well,
fine.
I will get that to you all, and you know, and about 80% of that I got already. But once I decide who the, you know, you know, I didn't pursue you, Paul. You reached out, and that Herb reached out and let me know he's had an unplanned career change. We found Martha about a month ago, and I said to Stanley the other day, I said, it seems like God is coming my way with just talented people, maybe more talented people and better resumes than we've ever had, because we've been mediator, legal heavy, and we don't need that, right?
Yeah.
So what you're asking for is common sense, common steps, logic. But what I've done, and it's not my style, is been patient. And I didn't want to be the first. And I've let 96 million be spent by CyberSettle and go out of business. I've let Modria shoot their wad and sell out to Tyler. So I've had the benefit of watching these guys make a lot of mistakes. So I feel pretty good. But by getting you all the written thing, and y'all see the patent and see what we have, then and only then can you make a decision on what we got. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And you know my story. I mean, since I've been retired now, what, 15, 16 years, right? I've done a lot of volunteer with different things in different places. And when you work for free, everybody wants you, right? But I had seen you, you know, giving updates of where you were at and where you were going. The idea intrigued me. And I just thought if I could help get some traction, then I was more than willing to do that. So
well, you met probably the most positive thing I wanted to get on this call is just to introduce you guys. And you, when you talk about my passion, the guy Stanley has more passion than I have. And you can't find one person to say anything bad about Stanley. He is about as good as there is. And so I think you all will want to pick his brain a little bit. And that next week, if you all should decide to maybe get involved, it's time to start asking the hard questions. But let me get you these other details before you the hard questions. Okay.
Yeah,
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to roll. I had a 12 o'clock call. She's waiting on me. So I'll get to her in a minute.
Stanley, can you drop me a text and let me know when would be a good time just to chat for a few minutes?
Sure, buddy. I'll do that as soon as I get done with this other. As soon as I get done with this other call.
My email, my cell number is I put in the chat feature. So
Okay.
go ahead and text me right now, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
All right. You have it, 954-261-8600. It's in the chat.
Okay, I'll get it.
All right, my man. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.